Awesome. It's so nice to see you all and meet you all. I'm Denver Foot. I'm going to be your host. I use she, her pronouns. I live in the Ingersoll Park area, so I live by the mayor, so that's kind of nice, I guess. I don't know. And I live in Ward 3, so Josh Mandelbaum's ward. I think we're going to start just to kind of like break this off, and I want this to be very people to be involved in conversations. So if you see a speaker, someone speaking, and you have a question for them, just be like, just pop it in the chat, or give us some hearts or some thumbs up, or just let us know what's going on in your little noggin. So the icebreaker question, we just got out of a polar vortex. It was very cold, below freezing all week. And I want to know, what is your favorite way to stay warm in the winter? Because warmth is a privilege. If it wasn't for the Black Liberation Movement and Des Moines Mutual Aid and Edna Griffin Mutual Aid, over 200 people would have not had warmth during this polar vortex. We would have had unnecessary deaths within our community. And I want you to share that warmth in our chat and let me know, how do you like to stay warm? They do work so hard. It's amazing, like amazing. I love them. I think my favorite way to stay warm is probably tea. I drink a lot of it. And I got an electric kettle for Christmas, so. Carhartt overalls, very fancy. I bet you just stay nice and warm. Two cats. I relate. I have two cats, Eustace and little Caddy, or Gatito Loco, crazy little cat, because he is a psychopath. Catherine is an emperor of soup. Wow. No, we welcome you anyways, and we appreciate you tuning in and caring about what's going on here. Great. Well, I think we are at max capacity. So here in a few minutes, I'm going to pass it over to Adam for our community agreement.
For sure, yeah. So I'm going to get us started with just a few kind of ground rules. We don't have very strict kind of rigid rules here. We have some guidelines we would like everybody to follow. Just because we know that coming into a place like this and speaking, whether you're listening to people talk or whether you're the one talking, it's very helpful to have some ground rules just for everybody's safety as much as we can ensure. So yeah, we just have a few ground rules for that. I'm going to go through those right now. The first one is reaching an agreement. That's kind of what I just said at the start of People's Town Hall events. We'll go through this agreement and be open to feedback, questions, and potential changes. If you have any questions or concerns or feedback about any of these rules I'm about to say, put them in the chat, or you can message any of us on the People's Town Hall team, and we can work on those either in the future or some of them we might be able to adjust right now. We always want to be open to change there. Part 2 is step up, step back. Everyone is invited to speak, and we want everyone to have an opportunity. So when you get to speak, say what's in your heart, and then step back so that others can speak.
All right, those things happen. Like Ava said, you hate to see it. And just gonna laugh it off and let's continue. I guess we're all here together to form a strong, safe environment. So if you see anything happening in the chat or anything going astray, just shout out. We have moderators watching the chat and everything. So I will pass it back to Adam. if he's still here.
I think Adam got kicked out. I'll give him just a second. Ba-ba-dum-bum-bum. This is grassroots, baby. Well, and maybe we'll take that as a sign that we're slowly growing, because I think that's the first time one of our meetings has got bombed. So maybe that's a compliment to us, you know? I don't know.
Sorry, I jumped out trying to close stuff down, but didn't have access to that. Anyway, I'll keep going through the community agreement. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit shaken. So the next rule is one speaker, one mic. To the best of our ability, let's honor the courage it takes to speak in public by listening. The next one is you matter. Every person's perspective matters because crafting the solutions our community needs will take each of us and our unique perspectives and experiences. The next one is hate speech. At the root of community is love, and we don't tolerate any less. Racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, and any other isms are not allowed. We grow together. When we work to better understand our community, we can build the future we need together. Safety through communication. If someone in our events is creating a hostile or unsafe space, let someone working the event know so we can work to resolve the situation. We cannot guarantee safety, but we believe that through compassion and communication, we can do our best to address unsafe situations. This may be the case if a known abuser is present, if someone is threatening people or otherwise creating a hostile or unsafe space. If anything like that happens, I believe Holly is in this chat to do some of that moderating. But if you need to message any of us with Will's Town Hall, that would be like me, Ava, Denver, Jake. Yeah, there's a lot of different people. Reach out to us if you have any concerns that you want addressed during the meeting. Yeah, and any questions, just let me or anybody else know. All right, so handing it over now to Ava with our COVID update.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. Let's see if I can get pinned. Otherwise, Adam's avatar is really cute. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead. So my name's Ava. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. And I just wanted to take a brief moment to talk about COVID and where we're at there. Just because I thought that it would be ill-formed to have a whole meeting and not acknowledge it. And that is what happens every city council meeting. They just, don't really talk about it while all of this is going on around us. Because currently, just recently enough, we passed 500,000 or 500,000 COVID cases. We're currently at like 514,000 COVID deaths in the United States, and over 5,000 here in Iowa that are all like our neighbors. So I know that thinking about those numbers as statistics can be sort of vague, but I just wanted to take a moment and really just sort of put into context and acknowledge that all of those numbers represent individual people, and all of those, for the most part, all of those people had loved ones or had families, and all of those family members are now going to have to live the rest of their lives without these loved ones that have passed. And then while all of this, mass death and grief and suffering is happening around us, we're continuing to be expected to like show up to work every day and keep shopping and keep consuming and just sort of carrying on like nothing is going on, like everything is normal, but like this is not normal. So please just hold yourself gently in these times. We're not close to the end of the pandemic yet, but we're finally to the point where the end is sort of starting to come into view, which I know is giving me hope, just knowing that more and more people are getting vaccinated, that my elderly grandmother just got her first vaccine dose recently and is scheduled for her second one. So we're not out of the woods yet, but slowly getting there. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. But I'm going to pass it back over to Denver, who will be our host / MC extraordinaire for the evening. And I'm just super excited to hear from everyone tonight. So thank you again for being here with us. Denver, it's all you.
Thank you, Ava. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you shining a light onto that. It's really hard, but it's something that we need to keep reminding ourselves of, because we're almost a year in this pandemic and things are just getting worse. And the only way we're going to be able to get things better is by working together and using our voices and digitally organizing in this hard time. I'm going to go into a grounding just to remind us of why we're here, and to just kind of ground us in this moment, where we're coming from and where we're going to go. So the night of May 30th last year, I joined the protests. The night of May 30th, I watched a police car drive through the crowd. I watched children and women be maced and tear gassed. Police officers in riot gear jump out of white vans and mace nearby protesters. I watched people cry, curse, and get angry, getting met with such force for grieving, getting met with such violence for protesting. And I was scared. I admit I was scared. And I left the protest when it reached Court Avenue. I returned a couple hours later for my friend. They were not answering their phone, and I was scared for the worst. The relief I felt when I knew they were safe was immense. Shortly after, people started doing minor damages to the businesses along Court Ave, breaking glass, venting their frustration and anger at the unjust society we find ourselves in. And although I understand their feelings, I did not want to stick around. Walking back to my car, I was met with a line of police. They were kettling us in. I thought if I remained calm, they would let me pass. I was maced, and I was maced again, and I was pushed into a small nook, away from street cameras, by 3 riot police, away from protesters, away from the other officers. I was maced again. I was not fighting back. I was repeating over and over again, I am not resisting. I am not resisting, as they hit me with batons. I am not resisting, as I thought I was going to be another brown person killed in police hands. I am not resisting. I thought I was going to die. A woman of 100 pounds, beaten by rogue police officers. I was never told I was under arrest, and I never heard a dispersal order. After spending 2 painful nights in jail, I was released. I was blind from the officers stomping on my glasses, and I was alone, scared, and in pain. But somebody came up to me. They asked me if I was okay. It was Des Moines Mutual Aid, doing jail support. They offered me a solution for the swelling on my skin from the mace sitting there. They offered me water. They offered me the first kind words I've heard in a long time. And following the months after this, I was under curfew with the threat of being arrested if caught. I was facing a felony, but it really didn't matter anyways. Because of the trauma, I was scared to leave my apartment. I would run errands by myself and have panic attacks. I wasn't sleeping because of my nightmares. And I was tired of being terrified every day. And I was tired of being hopeless and weak. And I knew I wasn't alone in these struggles. Where I found hope, though, was in my community. People coming together to organize and make our communities, our neighborhoods, and our city better. Mutual aid and Black liberation movement working together to put houseless folks in hotels during polar vortex. People coming together to pass one of the most aggressive climate resolutions in this nation. Youth responding to inequality in their schools and getting SROs out. Urban farmers using their knowledge to feed our communities. And here, coming together in this town hall, a place where ideas and actions grow. These are just some of the many examples. No matter who you are, you have a voice, and you have skills you bring to the table. Currently, we have an out-of-control, racist police department and a local government that uplifts them. Right now, Des Moines City Council is discussing their 2022 budget. They want to give police millions more in funding. They want to cut the houseless communities funding in half. They are sitting on COVID relief funds when hundreds of families need rent assistance now. And they want to silence our voices, but they can't, because our voices matter. Black, brown, Asian, Indigenous, poor, trans, our voices matter. Everyone who has been ignored by City Council, your voice matters. And when we have a bunch of voices, it's hard to ignore us. And that's why I need you to sign up and speak up at the next City Council meeting. Tell them how Des Moines Police Department is bankrupting our city. Tell them how police are toxic to our communities, how their funding habits uplifts racist officers, millionaire developers, and help line their own pockets. It is time for them to hear our voices because they can't ignore all of us, because we deserve a brighter Des Moines. Thank you. And now I will pass it over to Candace for our land and labor acknowledgement.
Hi everyone, thank you, Denver. My name is Candace. I use she, her pronouns, and I live in Ward 1 on Meredith Drive. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I just want to begin our town hall with the acknowledgement that we do live on stolen land here in Iowa. We sit on the ancestral lands of what is known today as the Iowa tribe. Let us remember that this country was founded on slavery and theft, and let us pray that one day those who've been harmed the most get the reparations that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Candace. And thank you everyone for your love in the chat. I appreciate it. I feel it. I see it. And we're gonna work together to make Des Moines better. I'm going to pass it over to the community updates. I'm going to pass it to Jalen Cavill first. So I will pass it off to you.
Yo, yo, yo. What's up, everybody? Good to be here. My name is Jalen Cavill. I use he, him pronouns. I am an organizer and advocacy chair for the Des Moines Black Liberation Movement. Still got my Black History Month background on. Don't want to take it off yet. You know, we can celebrate Black History Month every month, folks, so just know that. But yeah, let me get into our community agreements. I see y'all in the chat. I do also identify as the Polk County Sheriff. You know, that is a title that I claim. So if folks see me as that as well, you know, you're perfectly fine to say, hey, Sheriff, when you see me or howdy. But yeah, good to be here, y'all. Just gonna give some quick updates, some things that I think folks need to know, just kind of related to the work that we're doing here with the Des Moines Black Liberation Movement. So one big thing that I want folks to know, and hopefully some folks have already seen this, we did last week have a press conference with the family of William C. Scott. William C. Scott is someone who is currently incarcerated in the Anamosa State Prison here in Iowa. He has been incarcerated for 29 years now. He is serving a life sentence, and his sentence that he received is something that is called felony murder, and they charged him with a terrorist charge. this was in self-defense, and it was someone who had previously attacked him. And the charge that they charged him with now would not hold up in court. It is unconstitutional. It's not even a real charge at this moment. So we are working with the family to help support William C. Scott, who again has been incarcerated for 29 years now. So his whole life almost. Yeah, he has a, he's going to go in front of the appeals court or the board in April. So we are trying to help support him and get the word out about that. There is a petition that you can find on our social media website, our social media platforms in support of him. So if you could please sign on to that petition and share that with folks. We're also planning on having some sort of virtual rally with the family to help support him, which will be which will come up in the coming weeks. So please be on the lookout for that. Some other things that I think are important for folks to know is so we have our legislative demands. So I think it is important that folks continue to uplift those legislative demands, talk to their own legislators. I don't know how often folks here communicate with their state legislators, but hopefully pretty often. It's always good to remind them of our legislative demands and that they need to be doing real work on racial justice. Just to remind folks, those demands include legalizing cannabis at the state level and expunging records. Repealing Iowa Code ADF, which is the Iowa Peace Officers Bill of Rights, which just has a lot of protections for police officers that are unnecessary. Repealing Senate File 481, which is the Anti-Sanctuary Cities Bill, which requires law enforcement to cooperate with ICE. Repealing Iowa Code 904.808, which requires the state to purchase from Iowa prison industries, which is effectively slave labor, including all of the universities. So Iowa State, University of Northern Iowa, all of the materials, the desks in their classroom, the furniture they buy for the dorms, it's all coming from Iowa prison industries, made by folks who are incarcerated, making cents on the hour, and then sold for profit. Legalizing or legislation to promote Black maternal and infant health is a really big one that we have. Here in the state of Iowa, Black birthing folks are 6 times more likely to die during pregnancy or during childbirth than white folks. So that is a big problem and something that needs to be addressed. So legislation to help legalize midwifery and doula services could go a long way, as well as some other stuff with healthcare. And constitutional amendment to protect voting rights. If folks remember, that was a big one that we had over the last summer, which was getting Kim Reynolds to sign an executive order. Now we need the legislature to act and codify that into a constitutional amendment so that that cannot be reversed by another governor. Some other just important headlines I'll run through real quick, just because I think they're important for folks to know. It was referenced earlier, but the Des Moines Public School did announce that they are ending the SRO contract. They ended it completely for this year and next year and indefinitely, and are working on implementing a restorative justice program in that place. So shout out to Indy and Lyric, who I think are supposed to be speaking on here later, but the 2 student organizers, they built up a team of students in the Des Moines Public Schools and really organized and fought around this issue for almost a whole year. And their labor and their work, it paid off. So congrats to them. We helped them out a little bit, but really all of the credit goes to the students on this one. Another headline, Des Moines Police Senior Officer Rodney Briggs arrested. Just think it's important for folks to know that DMPD officers are out here being arrested and placed on administrative leave. So he is being paid by us right now while he has this investigation ongoing. So he was arrested. Real quick, also, another thing that I think folks should really read if they haven't read yet and share is Aaron Calvin's story about Abdi Sharif and the investigation that took place, or lack of investigation really, that took place with the Des Moines Police Department. And the things and the way in which Paul Parizek, the Des Moines spokesperson, the Des Moines Police Department spokesperson, handled this case and kind of the damaging things that occurred throughout that process. I think it's really important that that information is shared and that folks really read that stuff, because it's a lot of new information and stuff that folks probably don't know about the case. So yeah, good to get that stuff shared. Also, there was something this morning that came out in the Axios newsletter related to open records requests and settlements that are being paid out by the city. The city is being secret and not providing information on these settlements that are coming out, and open records requests are being hard to obtain. And this also kind of relates to something, if folks saw me on Twitter today, I've been pissed off about this all day long, but we have submitted an open records request, and we are trying to get some information regarding the Des Moines Police Department and their actions towards us. in our movement. And they are stonewalling us. Basically, this is something that we put a records request in back at the end of September, early October. So it's been over 5 months now. They did tell us we had to pay $800 when we requested this, which we did reluctantly pay $800 for these documents. Now today, we get an email telling us that if we want the documents, we need to pay another $500. This is just a clear tactic in a way for them to try to stop us from getting the information. They would rather us ask for a full refund and not get any of these documents. So just know that that is going on. There's a culture of secrecy and just blatant covering up that is going on here in our city government, and it really needs to stop, and it needs to be called out at all levels. Also going back real quick to the legislative stuff, Representative Ross Smith is introducing legislation called the Iowa Workers Act, which is a workers' bill of rights. So I think that is important for folks to know, and it has a lot of good stuff in there, and something that I think folks would really be interested in, protecting Iowa workers. And the last thing I will say real quick before I hop off, I know I've been going for a minute, is that people's court cases are starting to come up. I know folks have already had court cases. Some people have had, different deals, have gotten, some people have been lucky to get their cases dismissed or had other avenues or deals where they did not go to court. But now we are seeing that some of these cases that have been getting pushed to trial, the trials are coming up now. We know of one protester who has a protesting related trial this week. We know Andrea Sahoy, the journalist, has a trial for her protesting related charges next week. I actually had court today, kind of why I'm wearing a college shirt right now, but yeah, so they're coming up, folks. Today I was told that I have a trial that's scheduled for June now for one of my cases that's open. So I just want everyone to know that as these cases are progressing, that if you would like court support, if you would just want to see a friendly face in the courtroom or need help navigating any of this stuff, please reach out to Des Moines BLM or Des Moines Mutual Aid, and we'll help get you connected with resources to kind of make this process easier for you and support you along the way. And yeah, other than that, please follow us on social medias at Des Moines BLM, Des Moines Black Liberation Movement. Follow me on Twitter at Jalen Cavill, the Polk County Sheriff. And yeah, also our Des Moines BLM Rent Relief Fund is still operating and going. Please donate to that and share that as well, so we can keep funds in there to keep people from being evicted. But yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Jalen. That was a lot, and it's really good that you were here to let us all know what's going on, because I personally have a hard time keeping up with all of it. So I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day and coming out, and I hope that your trial goes good. And also, I love that we have people here to support people going to court. I was one of the lucky people who had my case dismissed. But yeah, I do really appreciate that. And I do think that Black History Month is kind of bogus. It's every day that we need to be anti-racist, and it's every day that we need to remember our history and where we come from as Americans. I'm going to pass it to Monica. She is from Sweet Tooth Farms and just resigned from the Food Security Task Force.
Hey everybody, Monica, she, her pronouns. So I'm a tenant farmer in Riverbend, and moving into year 4 of growing food here in the neighborhood. So I was approached by Bill Gray to appear on a food security task force, which just the name in and of itself is laughable, from City Council and City of Des Moines. They've made no tangible efforts to aid anyone who is being affected by food insecurity. This is in a publicity stunt by known alleged sexual predator Ed Fallon. He sells very expensive classes from his urban farm that he runs. It's a nonprofit. It's raised beds in his yard. He approached the city council to start this task force. Both Voss, Bozen, and Bill Gray have all told me this. They took a tour of his yard and they agreed to form this task force. The task force has a couple silly agenda items. There is 0 tangible resources, land, anything going to the residents in the city of Des Moines. It's been over 10 years since the city is open to community garden. So I repeatedly brought up these concerns to Jeremy. I can't remember his last name. He's the sustainability coordinator for the city of Des Moines, both via Zoom call and via email. Forcefully asked that we change the points that we were working on this task force. Was repeatedly told no, was repeatedly told that my ideas were too advanced, which so I was also told by Connie Bozen that I was safe from Ed Fallon because I wouldn't be physically in the same room from him. So I didn't need to worry about him. I did actually talk to his survivor today, who is wonderful and reached out to me, and we had a really nice conversation. The Sierra Club has put out official statements. A lot of his abuse came to light in March of 2020, right when things were shutting down. So many people did not hear about it, and many people can claim that they don't know. But I've had multiple women who will remain anonymous message me privately that they have had interactions with him that have been predatory and abusive. So today I resigned. I released a list of demands that I have, again, multiple times provided to the city and told them that these are simple, easy, straightforward ways to increase people's access to growing their own food. I also explained in basic terms that the idea that someone has the access to land, time, and disposable income to just start a garden and that would solve food insecurity was paternalistic and extremely problematic. To which they said, well, we're just going to put a PDF on our website about how to start a garden. So, ultimately, I also just, I've worked really hard to build a coalition of people who want to grow food and want to feed people, and who really truly believe that fresh produce, fresh food is not a luxury item and should not be a luxury item. And I don't want my name associated with Ed Fallon or the city council. So for that and all of the reasons I stated before, resigned. Bill Gray also emailed me back today and he said, because of this situation, I totally understand. So to me, not a great look. So Indira, I'll forward you that email, girl. Okay. But that's about it. I actually have to jump on another call. The remaining folks on the Food Security Task Force are both Ed and his partner, Kathy. And there's a couple other folks who, frankly, not sure as committed to a more truly equitable food system or, I guess, way to access land for people who are interested in doing any types of this work. So I don't really have anything else. I kind of just wanted to give the overview and let everybody know. So if you have any questions, I'm here. You can find me. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate you giving us that insight more into what's going on with the Food Security Task Force. It's like disappointed and not surprised when Bill Gray said that I understand why you're leaving the task force when houseless folk froze to death this past winter from the cold temperatures because they couldn't find heat, they couldn't find shelter, and city council decided just to post like, we have warming shelters, but they're not open during the coldest times during the night. And he said he didn't want to make a statement about it because he was shy. And that's not what we need from council. We need people who will stand up for the people who live within our communities. We need to be able to feel safe for our neighbors, and we need to be able to access good, healthy food to feed each other. With that, I'm going to pass it to Vanessa, who's going to be speaking on behalf of North Des Moines Mutual Aid. Vanessa, do you want to try and call in on your phone? All right. Well, I'm just gonna go with the next thing. So in between community updates and like our main section, we would like to start having like more art within the section. So if you are like an artist, if you're a musician, if you want to share anything in a safe, non-judgmental space, reach out to the People's Town Hall on Facebook or Twitter. And I really want to thank Jalen and Monica for speaking. Hopefully Vanessa can figure out her audio. And I really want to emphasize donating to mutual aid, the Rent Assistance Fund. Oh, we have Chris. And Des Moines Street Medics, they recently made frostbite kits for houseless folks. And we want to make sure to donate to the bail fund because as the weather warms up, we are going to be having actions more often. So it's really important that we have that. I think we'll be dropping all of the donation links in the chat. So just copy and paste it from the chat, email it to yourself, put it on a digital sticky note. If you have like a few extra dollars, if you skip like takeout, like you're like, I want to order Taco Bell for delivery and you end up not doing it, like donate that $20. So I'm going to pass it to Chris for North Des Moines Mutual Aid.
Hello, everyone. Are you guys able to hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, thank you. My name is Christopher. I'm from North Des Moines Mutual Aid, and we just kind of wanted to give a little update on what we're up to and kind of what we're about. As we saw here, well, as we're all seeing here in Des Moines, the food instability and food insecurity is rising, and as our members advise that over here in the North Des Moines area, our houseless community, they're out here, but actually invisible. It's hard to find these individuals, and not a lot of people do want to come out and state that they are having some issues or hide out in these apartments along the Moreau-Hay area. So we're doing our best that we can to be out here to help that food insecurity and food instability. Right now we are having hot breakfast program every 2 weeks, every Saturday, and hoping to expand that to 2 locations. We are based at Griffin Park currently, and then hopefully looking to expand to another location where we'll find what best fit our community needs. In the near future, we are working on the project of a community fridge, which would be located over here off of Douglas and Moreau-Hay. And we believe it's a nice, good location in which individuals have a lot of foot traffic that come through. And we're looking to be able to help the individuals who may not be able to make it out to our breakfasts all the time, and be able to provide them with good whole food or good food that they can provide to their families or to themselves in times of need. In the future, we do have another project coming. We're looking into starting possibly a community garden. So we're looking at what it would take to be able to buy a plot of land in our area and be able to provide that as a safe area for everybody to be able to come and plant the things that they would want to plant and take them home with them with no restrictions. And then I do also want to put out there that for those that are looking to start their own mutual aid group or affinity group, that there are a lot of opportunity here and a lot of things to do that a lot of people would need help with. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a mutual aid. It can definitely be an affinity group with some of your friends. I know there was the effort of an affinity group that was out there shoveling off the bus stops and such. And then that's a great idea. So any great ideas that you feel would be able to help your community, please jump on that and get your group together. There's a lot of groups out here, such as Des Moines Mutual Aid and Black Lives Matter, Black Liberation, and that would show support out here. This is what we all want. We want us to be able to rely on each other and be able to work together and have equity to be able to move forward in the future together as a community, as communities. And then we started, we learned a lot through the protest in the summer about mutual aid groups. And we definitely decided that we wanted to take action, and it's been a great response. If you need some motivation, go ahead and get out there. If you have any questions about getting started, feel free to message us. We're always happy to help. And we do appreciate you guys including us in this event. And I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you sharing that. I really admire everything that Des Moines Mutual Aid, North Des Moines Mutual Aid is doing. I see y'all doing the breakfasts, starting this community fridge. It's literally the community coming together and filling cracks that we need to assist our neighbors. We need to feed our community, and we need to make a space that's comfortable for everyone to organize in, to create their own mutual aids, their own affinity groups. Like I said, everyone has a voice that they can use to speak up. Everyone has skills that they can use to help their communities. And any way that you can give back is good. Small or big, it doesn't matter as long as you do something. If you see an issue within your community and you help. I wanted to note that Monica does have a community fridge as well with the Sweet Tooth. It's 1809 8th Street. It's open 24/7, and it's actually plugged into, well, she pays for it, so that's amazing. So I wanted to note that, and we're gonna drop all the socials of everyone that just spoke so you can follow along, stay up to date. We got North Des Moines Mutual Aid. We have Jalen and the Black Liberation Movement links, and then we also have the Sweet Tooth Farm information. So make sure just to keep up to date with that. With that, I'm going to move in to the next section of our agenda. So I'm going to pass it to Amy Bettel. She is a strong, level-headed woman, someone who puts actions into words to achieve goals, to help her community, someone I know that I can count on to lend a hand. So I'm going to pass it off to her to talk about passing things at a local level.
Well, hello, everyone. Like Denver said, my name's Amy Bettel. I use she, her pronouns. I was born in Des Moines and have lived here, or at least the surrounding area, my entire life. I was asked to speak tonight about the recent 24/7 clean energy resolution in Des Moines that passed about a month ago, 2 months ago at this point. Time is moving so fast with the pandemic. I won't bog us down with the technical details of the resolution, but what I really want to drive home is that it is possible to get things done here in Des Moines. Doesn't always feel like it, but it is possible to be heard and to have our community's well-being improve as a result. So when it comes to climate in particular, though not unlike many of our other large-scale problems that we have in our world and in our community, it can feel like no matter what we do, the situation is too large to be affected. You know, like, for example, the US government doesn't know what to do, or the UN can't come to a consensus. At worst, the system is too bureaucratic to progress, and at worst, it's designed to actively suppress a just society. I definitely think it leans towards the latter, but all that to say is that it's really overwhelming. On the other hand, we're all living under capitalism, and it can be hard to make ethical choices as an individual that reduce our environmental impact or lend other benefits to our community. Like personally, I have a full-time job that not only takes up my time, but it also kind of takes up some of my emotional energy. And by the time that I'm allowed to be off the clock and think about what's happening outside my door, I'm often like way too tired to do that, to be honest. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that in some way. So in my work, like at my actual job, we're always rewarding like innovators, people who have invented something or are somehow superhuman. But I have always kind of seen myself as contradictory to that. Like, I don't feel like I'm a hero. I don't feel like I have that $1 million idea. And I see that similarly in this local community. Like, I look up to so many different people like Indira, people like Jalen, and I don't see myself being the one that's like carrying the flag at the beginning of the charge. So many real ground shakers. And that's why I feel so flattered to be here, because I think of myself as just a regular person. But we're not here to dwell on my insecurities. I just think that a lot of people can relate to how I feel about the weight of all the things going on and how we can feel so helpless at times. All that to say is that despite all of these challenges, it is entirely possible to let yourself really steep in the issues and get something done about it. And the team that led the 24/7 clean energy resolution to be passed has demonstrated that at multiple levels. So when the resolution was first introduced by the Sustainability Task Force, we just previously talked about a lot of task force can be performative and how they don't always represent the issues very well. That much I can agree with, but the Sustainability Task Force has been trying their best despite all of that. They introduced this resolution mainly through Josh Mandelbaum as a conduit. And at that time, no one else really supported it. Mayor County had said that he was like an environmental advocate, but like, where? Where are you? And then there were people who just outright didn't support it, like Connie Bozen, Joe Gatto. Linda Westergaard didn't even know if she supported it or not. She didn't really understand it. And then there were like some swing votes like Carl Voss and Bill Gray. So Jake from CCI, which I just realized sounds way too similar to Jake from State Farm, brought together a group of people who were pretty passionate. And I will say that this group of people weren't necessarily passionate about the resolution. They were just passionate about something. You know, they were passionate about something in relation to climate. And we all brought this energy together to bring about some kind of momentum for this resolution. And I think I heard about it on Twitter. And so it wasn't like I was headhunted for this or that I was somehow magically cast into this role. I just was someone who came across an opportunity and took it. So if that resonates with you, I would encourage you to do the same thing. From there, this group planned a couple of virtual lobbying events. We gave guidance to the attendees on how to communicate a compelling personal story that relates to an issue. And that template can be used over and over again for any issue you care about in any city council meeting or in any format, such as an email or a voicemail like we did during this event. We basically just wanted to really build people's capacity for communicating their desire for something within their community. And this was just like a really ideal time to do it because a lot of people felt isolated, people came together, it was pretty casual, we put on some music, it was a vibe. And I just feel so, I can't say surprised, but I just feel so grateful that it actually all worked out fabulously, and that we were all pandemic safe during this virtual event, and that the various actions that we had aligned for people to take part in were relatively low effort. All that to say that being involved in your community doesn't have to take a lot of time or sophistication for you to do it. So ultimately, when the resolution was voted on about a month later, City Council passed it unanimously. To our surprise, we kind of thought there might be a couple people who weren't going to vote yes, but everyone did. And the language in that resolution was stronger than when we first saw it, making it one of the best in the nation, if not the best, actually. So that is 2 massive wins for our city, for our community leaders, all of the organizers. And while we celebrate this win, we carry this momentum forward in holding our city government accountable to actually sticking to that resolution and staying on the heels of Mid-American, who is in an adversarial position to this resolution. So that is just my story. One example of one of the many good things that are happening in Des Moines. You'll hear many examples soon. And just generally to recap, what I think it takes to make Des Moines a brighter place is that remembering that you have a place. Sometimes we have this analogy of who gets a seat at the table, and just remember that the community is the table. Like, you don't have to be invited in, you don't have to have a seat, you're already there. Secondly, stay connected. We're offering a lot of opportunities to do that with the links in the chat. And I will say, don't just follow them, turn on their tweet notifications. Personally, on my Twitter account, I have tweet notifications on for my best friend, and then for Des Moines BLM, Indira's campaign, and like all the mutual aid groups. So that's what's important to me. Thirdly, say yes and say no. I think that sometimes when you're really passionate about something, you want to say yes to all of the ways that you can do some good, but also remember that you are a human being and you deserve all of the other things that make a full life. And that means that sometimes you have to say no. And those difficult decisions say something about who you are. And I think that's a worthwhile thing to reflect on. Lastly, I would say just bring your light to it. I think that, at least for me, in the way that I moved through my my education and in my early professional time, I have always thought about, you know, how things should be done, and the way that things are characterized in our society as the way things are supposed to be done are usually informed by dominant cultures like white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, and all of the above. So just bring what makes you really genuine to your work. One example of this being when I put my head together with this small organizing group, I suggested that we do a bingo card for how people can interact with different actions. And turns out it was highly successful. It seemed a little informal, but it was exactly what the group needed, and will probably serve as a template for a lot of the work that we might do in the future. So don't be afraid to kind of step out of bounds sometimes. I think that we all welcome innovation in different ways. So that concludes kind of my journey through this process. I've come to learn a lot. And if you would like to connect with me personally, I'll drop my @ in the chat momentarily. I will be saying that I have been on kind of like a social media cleanse. So I'm not always the most online, but I do like to stay connected. So I won't be hard to reach by any means.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. You are always so well explaining what we went through. I was a part of that group that did lobby city council. And I think environmental issues is the first time that I got involved with organizing. I used to be extremely depressed and suicidal, and my nephew was born, and I was like, I need to like be here to make the world better for him. And that's what got me to start organizing back in 2016. And definitely understand, you know, say yes, say no. And I also definitely relate with you about not feeling like just taking opportunities. I feel like I don't really have the voice or the power to be able to lead groups, but here I am hosting People's Town Hall, and I helped organize it. So that's amazing. I definitely relate with you, Amy. Thank you, guys. Next, I'm going to pass it to Indira Shoemaker. She is someone whom I admire for her strength, her voice, her knowledge, someone who is paving the way for women and children of color in our city. She is Ward 1 Council candidate. So I will give it away to you.
Hello. I hope everyone's doing well. Actually, like, how about everybody just throws in the chat, like, how are you feeling right now? We've been hearing a lot of people talk, and we've heard a lot of good things and a lot of kind of like heavy things. Inspired, twice in a row, inspired. I love that. Oh my God, we're just like doubling up on inspired and hopeful. That's awesome. Is that Cora Eggerman? Excited to get back to this time. I can't wait till you get here. But okay, so the first thing I wanted to say is that I love town hall events, because like honestly, anytime that like we meet for People Town Hall, anytime that we like talk to each other, I just feel so like full in a way that I don't in other spaces, right? Like I spend a lot of my time in like city council spaces, and I feel it's very hostile, right? And I spend a lot of my time, you know, we all spend a lot of our time kind of like isolated with like our own small like, you know, groups by ourselves, our families, our like little pods or whatever. And being in community like this is just like, it does so much for my heart, and I always feel better after being in a space like this. So I'm just grateful that we get to have People's Town Hall 3. I'm very grateful to Denver for doing so much of the organizing, and Ava as well for putting this together. And this group is just like, through all like, you know, trials and, you know, hard times, we're always like wanting to come back. And I think that's very, very strong. And so I'm so excited to see like some new names and faces too that I haven't seen here before. And I hope that you guys come back as well. But something that I do want to talk about today is I am running for Des Moines City Council and Ward 1. So if you live in Merle Hay, Beaverdale, Lower Beaver, Riverbend, King, Mondamin, Carpenter Avenue, the north side of Drake, the north side of Waveland Park, then all of that is Ward 1. And I'm running to be your city council person. And I kind of want to talk about my vision for what that race, what Ward 1 and what Des Moines can look like. So we're talking a bit about like budget today, right? We've got the March 8th City Council meeting coming up, and they're going to be approving the budget, and they're going to have a public hearing, which is, you know, their way of checking a box saying that they heard from the public, but the decision has been made, right? Like they have a deadline, March 31st, to get the budget to the state, and they, you know, want to get it done early, and they're just going to push it through. But the issues that we have is that the decisions that are being made about how they spend money are not being made by the people who they take the money from, or the people who like those decisions are going to affect. So what they invest in is a show of their priorities, right? And their priorities don't include the voices of the people of Des Moines, don't include the voices of the people who are affected by the departments they choose to fund, like the Des Moines Police Department, who they don't include the voices of people who like initiatives they choose not to fund, like the houseless community, like the Food Security Task Force, things like this. And I think that this comes back to kind of the nature of the situation that we're under. So we all live in a country, in a state, in a city, right? And all of these things are incorporated in a specific way. We talk a lot about, you know, like living on stolen land, wanting to give that land back to the indigenous people. But we can also look at that in like a more concrete way, in the fact that what we have is a government that is separated from the people, and that rules over the people and makes decisions for the people. And this is enforced by the establishment of a border, and enforced like through some kind of force, like military, police department, right? And I think something that we need to notice is that we are a bunch of people who live in an area, right, that someone has decided that this is the city of Des Moines, that this is incorporated into the city of Des Moines, and we have a government that is the city of Des Moines, and then you get to have a say in it every couple of years about who gets to be in that government, but you don't actually get to have any control over what they do. And it sets us up for a situation where you've got like a ruling class who is making decisions that affect the lives of everybody below. So we're all forced to work to survive. And then when disasters come along, we don't get any kind of support. And yet if you own property, they're taking money from you. If you buy anything in the city of Des Moines, 1 cent of that sales tax goes to the city of Des Moines. But we don't actually get a say in anything that happens. And they set up these commissions and task force and things like that to kind of like say like, oh, well, some people got a say, right? We reached out to the community and we said 1 person in the community gets to be on this board, or that board or this commission. and some business owners like who have interest, and that's a completely fine thing, business owners being in control of what's happening to people. But that's just kind of an illusion essentially that they're creating. Like the Food Security Task Force, we're very disappointed with that because it's essentially a PR stunt for them to say like, we're doing something about food security, but really that's not a priority of theirs or would be funded in the budget. But instead, like we got the update from Monica, like they're just planning to put a PDF on the website about how to start a garden, but like we have the realities of the fact that like this isn't funded. I was surprised to hear they hadn't opened a garden in 10 years. But like we can also look at the fact that people don't have the opportunity to do it themselves, right? So the city government is an organization that takes all of our money from property taxes, from sales taxes, while the state and federal take income, right? They take money and then they don't give it back into the community. And we can fight all we want. Like there have been some successful lobbying efforts. Amy was talking about the 24/7 clean energy resolution, which people had to fight very, very hard for. And I think we also need to recognize the fact that this is not a normal situation. Maybe it has been normal for years, right? But it is not normal to have to fight so hard for something that you and your neighbors know is what's best for you, know what's best for everyone around you. It really shouldn't be this way. The fact that you have to like lobby and you have to rely on some task force and you have to beg for this money to be given back when it was yours to begin with, right? So something that I've heard a lot in circles like in CCI meetings, right, is like public money for the public good. This is public money. It's not the government's money, right? It's our money. The government is supposed to be an organization of us so that we can give our money back to the things that we need so we can support each other in a communal way. But when that is, guarded by, an exclusive government that uses force from the police department, that money doesn't belong to us anymore. It's been taken from us. So something that I wanted to establish all of these ideas so I could talk about the idea of what we're really pushing in my campaign is not just, getting somebody on the council who is going to listen to these things. That's part of it, obviously. Getting someone on the council who cares about the community, who wants to give that money back, but more so giving people a say about what happens in their communities, giving people the opportunity to have power in those conversations and in decision making. Because like I want to be on the council to fight for these things, but like I don't last forever. Nobody lasts forever, right? And every 4 years we have to fight to make sure that somebody is fighting in our best interest. We're going to lose sometimes. And if we don't have power in the hands of the people, then we always are susceptible to going back to these systems where people's private interests are the main factor that in decision making, right? Where developers get all the benefits of the decision making that happens in city council. So what we're trying to build is literally self-governance, is bottom-up governing from the people making the decisions about what happens to them. And we want to build that up through people's councils. So we want to start with a Ward 1 People's Council. That's where I'm running in Ward 1, right? So I want to start it here, but I want to spread it to all of Des Moines. I would like to spread it, further than that, but we gotta start somewhere. So what we want to do is get people involved in talking to their neighbors, talking to people in their communities, and identifying needs, and then identifying possible solutions. And some of those might be, right, like there's somebody on your street who has a snowblower, and when it snows really heavily, like everybody has to go out and shovel their sidewalks and shovel their driveways. What if we all shared that snowblower, right? What if we all chipped in for gas and like we did shifts on the snowblower? It makes everyone's lives a lot easier, right? But some of those problems also might be something that is up at the city level. Like there are houseless people in our communities, and there's empty houses, and there's apartment buildings with empty units, and those get to be privately owned and held onto to create scarcity to manufacture profit. And what can we do to break down barriers at the city level so that people aren't living in bad conditions, so that people can survive in their lives, so that people can live like fulfilling lives, right? So we can get together with our neighbors and we can have these discussions and then bring them back to a larger group and bring them back to the person who is given that power in the current system, right? The Ward 1 city council person, the at-large city council person, the mayor, building up these organizations, right? Because when we are organized together, there's so much more that we can do. If there's a situation like Save Our Stadiums, right? So that was a situation where they're trying to take the football games out of the schools' home stadiums and put them into a private stadium for Drake that they just want to build to give the Drake soccer team their stadium. They got 7,000 signatures on this petition from people in the Des Moines area, parents, alumni, who wanted to see our schools continue to thrive. If you are organized with your community, it's so much easier to get signatures like that, right? So if we have these councils that are built up, we can get signatures, or we can do direct actions. We can bring these concerns to our city council person, and if they're receptive or not, we have avenues because we are already organized and we are already talking. We already realize that we have people in our communities who are dealing with the same things that we are. I want to talk about, I think that something that we don't always think about is that I think that we do have a desire for self-governance that we don't always acknowledge because we are so used to the system that we are living under. When we talk about these issues, when we come together and we talk about these issues and we say what they're doing is unacceptable, they need to do more, I think that what we have been conditioned to do is look up to the centralized government and say look up and say you need to do more, right? And then expect them to hand that out, expect them to do better. If we can get, a benevolent city government that cares about its people, that would be fantastic. But to have to do that much work is unacceptable. To have a system that holds this money away from us and doesn't give it to us when we need it, doesn't put that money directly back into communities, doesn't put that money directly back into roads and sidewalks and community gardens, into housing, into public infrastructure, into the utilities that we need, like internet in a modern age, in a pandemic, when everybody's doing everything online. How many people aren't able to come to this meeting because they don't have access to internet? How many people aren't able to go to work or aren't able to find a job or aren't able to go to school because they don't have access to internet right now? Things like this should be coming back to us, but we shouldn't have to look upward and look to a centralized system to ask for it. I think that we know what we want and we know what's right. We can say, I know what's in my self-interest. What's in my self-interest is to be able to fund fixing up my house, is to be able to buy groceries and not be terrified of my bank account. We know what we want, and we come together and we talk about it, and then we go and we beg our city council, or we beg something even further away like the state government, or something even further away like the federal government, to give these things to us because that's their job. But they shouldn't be able to have that power over us, and we should have power over ourselves. We should be able to come together with our community and find solutions that benefit us because we know what's best for us. There is nobody else who knows better what's best for you than you do, and there's nobody else that knows better what's best for your community than your community does. And so we want to bring people together to actually be able to have those conversations, to be able to grow in that power, because we have all that power inside of us, and the more we come together, the more that power grows. So right now what I'm asking is, I'm just asking for you guys to join the campaign. This is the plan. This is what we're working on. This is a campaign that's going to be going beyond just an election, right? I would like, if you live in Ward 1, I would like for you to vote for me. I would like for you to volunteer, because I want to be that person on council who listens to the community, who builds up these systems, listens to the community. But it's a long-term project that I want everybody to be involved in, because we are building this up further than just November. We're building it up for the long term so that people in Des Moines have power to be making the decisions that affect them in this city and on this land and in their neighborhoods. So yeah, please join the campaign. And if you're passionate about this, reach out. We're looking for people who want to organize around these ideas, who want to reach out to their neighbors, because it's going to be very, very important to reach out to people who don't have as much access to government, who don't have as much political mobility, financial mobility. So we really need people who are dedicated to the cause long-term to be doing this, reaching out to friends and neighbors, and getting more people involved. So I just want to thank you guys for letting me speak today, and I'm just so happy to be in community with you guys. It's literally always the best part of my month. whatever months we're able to do this. So I will go ahead and pass it back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Indira. That was amazing. I love always hearing about your vision for Des Moines. It's something that is really like, it's like a cloudy day, and then like you start to vision what you want your future to be like, and like the clouds start passing, and then you actually like make a plan, and you start making steps towards this, and you start building community, and you start organizing, and you start getting shit done to help our communities. And I really appreciate that, and I'm really excited for your campaign and to help out in the future. I don't know, I'm going to pass it to, I don't know if Endy and Lyric are on yet. I know that they were going to be kind of late, so.
We're here.
Okay, cool. I am. All right. So Endy and Lyric are two people who are not afraid to stand up to the status quo, who do not stand by in the face of injustice, who continually fight for the safety of their friends, family, and neighbors. I am happy to introduce Endy and Lyric.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Endy Montalvo Martinez, pronouns he, him. I'm a senior from East High.
I'm Lyric Sellers, pronouns she, her, and I'm a junior at East High School.
So really, we're just two student leaders who started out like essentially like a year ago. We basically started with like a equity and racial justice proposal that included things like making district-wide changes to curriculum, investing and retaining teachers of color. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, investing in anti-racism training. And like the biggest thing that we recently were really successful with was removing SROs and implementing restorative justice.
Yeah, so basically a big thing that, was at the core of our work was being very intentional. We found ourselves, in loopholes, being led to just dead ends. Just started out not really being taken seriously with our work and our goal, and really not having, enough faith in it, especially when it came from, the district. So we knew that we had to have liberation of our youth and of our marginalized youth at the core of our work, and make sure that we were revolving everything around that liberation and that that collective working, because we really couldn't have done it without the supporters and the solidarity that we had. But we just had, endless dedication to this work. We had meetings with every board member. We had student-led teams that we have cultivated at every middle and high school, and now working with elementary school. We reached out to every single admin that is in the district to really just get people to listen, and finding ways to engage our community organizations and work with them so that, we can have an outreach of more people who can ultimately work towards the same goal, which was being anti-racist, and really had to grow into ourselves and find out, how much we were really capable of. I think we went into it really not knowing that we could take on such a big thing and it actually work out. And I think just having each other and having, the support of our students and our peers that showed up, our staff that showed up, we really got to see a big culture shift and culture change, because at first a lot of people were surveyed and they did not, agree with this removal or did not have faith in it. But I think when we saw the results at the end of the year, when it was time to make the decision, we saw that, less than 50% of staff and students were advocating to keep SROs, which was a huge change. So, that it really had intention at the core. And I think if we wouldn't have dedicated as much as we did, we wouldn't have seen the same outcome. So there were definitely its challenges. Indy could talk more about that, but I think we really got to see how the people show up and make things happen.
Yeah, and just kind of to elaborate on the issue at hand. So like the SRO contract was between DMPS and the city of Des Moines. It was almost a $1.5 million contract. DMPS would pay $725,000 a year to have SROs in schools. So our work was really, endless advocacy towards our district leaders to make sure that, they ended that contract. But we understood that ending the school to prison pipeline wasn't at just, removing SROs. There's work that has to be done with it. So with pushing the removal of SROs, we wanted to reinvest those funds into restorative justice, and that's what's being done so far. We're working on hiring more support staff like restorative justice facilitators and mental health services for students. And something really interesting, or a challenge I guess we had through our work was, validating experiences. Even though Lyric and I hadn't had like a personal experience with an SRO, we have a lot of friends and a lot of student experiences that were brought to our attention where their experiences was traumatizing. Like I know a friend who, wasn't intentional about a fight, but she had to defend herself because a student, attacked her. And the SRO came, or the admin were actually the ones who separated the two students. And the admin came to the student with the SRO really aggressive, agitated, hostile. And regardless of the student, asking for their mother, they wouldn't let any contact, and they didn't provide any legal counsel. And they essentially threatened her with charges if she didn't go to this like second chance program, which is essentially, them traumatizing her with what prisoners eat, what they wear, and like basically a day in the life of like someone who's detained. And it's a traumatizing experience, and there's no reason a student should go through that. And there's so many other experiences like that one that are traumatizing. And I think not even those traumatizing experiences, but the fact that like a lot of the students, the culture within DMPS where you go into school and you feel threatened by that simple presence there. And the fact that our teachers, our admin feel so they feel it's so easy just to divert that situation with the student off to an SRO instead of trying to, provide those resources that the student needs at hand, really goes back to show that the culture that DMPS was having. But that's essentially why we were, advocating towards that. And there were a lot of challenges. Like, I feel like at the beginning, like Lyric said, we were like going in circles because no one really wanted to address what we were, like uplifting. Like no one wanted to help us, meet our ends, meet our goal. And like this idea of like allyship, like, oh yeah, I'll support you, I support you, tell me what you need, but there's no action behind that. And, we've seen that culture, grow between like a lot of white educators and white admin. Like now they're actually, willing to full-heartedly, provide action to like things that we deem as necessary or as important. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. And meetings with like admin and the school board members was really intimidating. Oftentimes we were gaslit. Like we try to validate experiences, but they'd say that, like, oh, there's lack of funding. Oh, we need SROs. Like, we can't accommodate everyone, but it's not about accommodating anyone. I mean, it's not about accommodating everyone. And we weren't pushing to criminalize our students equitably. Like we know that there was a disparity between white students and Black students who were being criminalized, but we weren't pushing to have SROs have essential training so that they don't criminalize Black students more disproportionately. We're saying that there's no reason any student at DMPS should be criminalized for simply going to school. So yeah, Lyric, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, and I think that going into it, we were looking towards the end, like when they finally vote, when we finally are done. But really the day that they were voting, we were literally on the phone talking about what we have to do next and how we have to, cater to these levels of implementation. How are we working with our students and hearing from them to make sure they feel supported and confident in this plan? How are we talking with our teachers and our staff to make sure they feel confident and supported in it? So that we're analyzing how this will affect people, not only district-wide, but just simply in the classrooms. And along with, reaching out to social workers and the Department of Human Rights and figuring out, in what realm and what capacity they can support students and, what else those students need to feel fully supported. And along with the staff that are going to be brought in, advocating to be on the hiring process to make sure that we are getting, staff that are representative of our student body. We've really just seen a lot of other exposed flaws with the system, just working towards really the goal of removing SROs. We got to see a lot of things that we have to tackle on, and finding ways to constantly have that youth voice liberated, and how are we centering the conversation around them, and making sure that people actually listen. Just being in the predicament where we felt like, you know, we were there to be heard, but we were the ones that were being heard the least, and making sure that no one really has to go through that again, at least not in our presence, or if we have something to do about it. And I think this is like the perfect opportunity, because we get to see the people in our community and how they, you know, we're essentially all a part of our schools and our school system. What are we doing outside of schools? Because these are where our kids are coming from, our students are coming from these communities. And how are we investing in that? And how are we working with our schools? You know, who have you talked to that works in the school building, or what students are you actually having these conversations with? I think a lot can come from just setting a goal of investing in students and investing in our youth to begin with, and making sure that we're really cultivating a culture inside and outside of our schools, and working with our youth to, you know, be a part of that.
It's really good. I love building culture inside and outside of your schools, being centered around youth. Y'all, this is our youth, and these are people who are going to be movement leaders in the future and now and forever. And I'm really glad and thankful so much for you being here. I want to highlight what Jalen said in the chat. He said, organized and built up power. Now they have to listen. That is something that we can take in with us as adults, as youth, and as older people. You know, we can take that in account to change things that we want to change and the adversities that we face in our lives. So I thank you. I really don't know what to say. I'm like kind of speechless. You guys are amazing. So yes. So I'm going to pass it over to Kennedy Lilly. She is someone who uses words and actions to plant firm roots, who is not afraid to get dirty in the process to feed our communities, to strengthen our communities, and help us grow a brighter Des Moines.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. My name's Kennedy. My pronouns are she, her. I was asked to speak specifically on a vision for a Des Moines that invested in more urban green spaces, and more community gardens, and more urban farms, and in more food forests. So together, let's envision food forests throughout the city of Des Moines, right? Can you envision maybe a short walk from your house or from wherever it is that you're staying, a mini pocket of green exploding with biodiversity, with plants and animals and insects, and most importantly, food for yourself and your family and your neighbors and the surrounding community. Can you envision what it would be like if every single person in Des Moines had that access to fresh, healthy food? There'd be less desperation, there'd be less hunger, there'd be more joy, and there'd be more freedom. There's so much evidence to suggest that urban green spaces provide a multitude of benefits. Like individually, it lowers stress and cortisol levels. It's very healing, yes. And also just improving cognition, improving social connection, improving physical activity. That's like individually, but obviously there's environmental benefits to increasing urban green spaces, reducing urban heat island effect, and mitigating floods, right? Trees and plants act as nature's sump pumps in the effect, or in the instance of flooding, which is only projected to increase in frequency and severity as the effects of climate change worsen. Not only environmentally, but there's also economic benefits to increasing urban green spaces. Like, I don't know if you've heard of this, but like shopping centers that have more vegetation present, actually shoppers are studied and shown to spend more money. So just like interesting, like there's all types of different reasons why increasing access to urban green spaces has benefits for people. In my vision of a more vibrant Des Moines, I picture rooftop gardens sprinkled throughout the Des Moines city skyline, and I picture food pantry shelves filled with organic local produce that is culturally relevant, that people know what to do with and people want to eat. I picture strong local economies and neighborhood markets throughout the entire city. And if more and more restaurants had options to buy from local producers, then we'd have more and more opportunities for people as well. So if the city were to redirect funds and to invest in people who want to create urban farms, then we could provide livelihoods and opportunities for young and motivated entrepreneurs in the city. People like myself, I have just this year launched Radiate DSM, which is an urban farm and urban garden here in the city. And I wouldn't be able to be here saying that if it weren't for Monica at Sweet Tooth Farm, who invested her time, her resources, her energy, her money, her support into me and my business. And that's what one person has been able to do to support another individual in the city. So imagine what the city could accomplish if they put more energy and more resources directly to the local urban farming community here. One farm, one community garden in each neighborhood of Des Moines is an attainable goal. Money could be used to not only buy resources, materials to get people started, but also to pay people for their labor, to hire people, to organize community, hire people to manage the farmland, and to figure out a way to distribute that food throughout the community. These should be people that are living in and from these communities as well. I think is important. But if the city cared, then they would remove the barriers that exist for people to get started, and they would see the inherent value in doing that. People deserve equitable access to healthy and nutritious food. And right here, right now in the city, that does not exist. And I also just want to say, lastly, that for me, this work is most important for the children of the city of Des Moines. Children are growing up right now in nature-poor areas of the city and are becoming disconnected. I know because I was one of those children. I grew up poor with limited access to healthy food and limited access to nature. Nature for me and my siblings, it was the playground outside of whatever apartment building that we were staying in at the time. So I just want to stress that it's really important for children to feel connected to food and to nature, because that fosters a sense of environmental awareness and environmental concern, awareness of the interrelatedness of humans and nature and the dependence that we rely on. And then I also want to say that everything that I discovered that I'm passionate about, like healthy food and a connection to nature, and being able to combine those in the practice of caring for plants and farming, everything that I'm passionate about, I discovered as an adult. So imagine where I could be today if, as a child, I had access to a community garden. I just think that for me, it's really important to remember that. Yeah, thank you. That's all that I had prepared to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Your vision is beautiful. It gave me goosebumps. It's an amazing thing that we can envision. It's something that we can work towards. Like you said, the way you started Radiate DSM was through the help of another person. And if we just reached out to our neighbors and helped each other, for me, we have a community garden in our back. We live in a sixplex, and it's because my neighbor is a gardener, and we got together and we got seeds, and she's elderly, and we help her, do mix the soil, and like we get dirty. And if we had that more, and we had more communities, and I know that gardeners are passionate people, farmers are passionate people, and they want to share their knowledge, and it is obtainable. Even like without funding from the city, is something that I think is really real and really obtainable. It's just having your community members and your neighbors work together. So thank you for speaking. I'm going to pass it over. We have someone speaking from the Great Plains Action Society. They are water protectors or earth warriors, spreading knowledge of the indigenous culture. Our land is sacred, but it is stolen. And I thank the Great Plains Action Society for all you do.
Tansi, thank you for having me. My name is Sakawis, also Christy Nobis, and I'm Plains Cree Saulteaux of the George Gordon First Nation in, sorry, that's really bad, in Saskatchewan, and I've been living in Iowa for 15 years, and the founder of Great Plains Action Society. I'm kind of here as a placeholder for Rodney, actually. So I think I will just say that Rodney is from Ward 1, and he has been doing amazing work with Des Moines Mutual Aid for some time, and Great Plains we do what we can to support that work, purchasing propane and supporting Rodney in many ways. And yeah, so we do a lot of work across the state, and so I don't know if you want updates on work across the state, because this sounds very local. So yeah, just let me know what you're looking for.
Evie here. I think if you want to talk about the work you're doing across the state, that'd be great. And I think too, just if you have any sort of vision for how communities, especially indigenous communities, could look if they were given proper funding that they deserve.
Okay.
Whatever you want to speak to, really.
Well, yeah, a lot of our work does actually affect what's going on in Des Moines. So if you want to read more of Ronnie's perspective on mutual aid, from an indigenous perspective, you can check out our zine. We have a website. Our website is Great Plains action.org, but we also have a Truthsgiving website, and he has a zine on there. If you go to truthsgiving.org, you can read a zine there that has his writing in it. We have been working on an urban native COVID response in the tri-state area of Sioux City since last March or April. And through this, we've developed a relationship with the American Friends Service Committee. We're moving towards doing more work with the large indigenous migrant population there. We know that meatpacking plants have had a huge effect on indigenous migrant folks in Iowa, and on Native American folks in Sioux City, as a lot of these people in the area, work in these plants that have so viciously, continued to work and put these people's health at risk. Oh, by the way, I'm she, her. We are working on a University of Northern Iowa land acknowledgement rural project on the campus. This project is intended to shed light on Native American culture in the state of Iowa, particularly the Wahpeton, Oceti, Shakoi, Iowa, Soak and Meskwaki, and the Omaha tribes. And we are continuing, like we have been for years, to work on abolishing monuments to white supremacy in the state, which a lot of that work happens in Des Moines, obviously. If you've ever been to the Des Moines Capitol Complex, it's basically a shrine to genocide, death, and mass colonization and enslavement. So it's really not an easy place for BIPOC folks to be. And so we have an event on Saturday if you're interested. If you go to our Facebook page or Instagram page, we're going to be talking about this issue. We've created a petition, which I will be actually posting today, reposting, because we haven't really circulated it very much since we created it. And we're working on legislation. We're working with Akaya Abdul Samad. I hope to get this, eventually a bill passed that sees what's happening, sees these monuments as forms of hate speech, and you know, actually have them removed and not have brown and black folks put their bodies on the line and their futures on the line for, you know, the removal of these atrocities. We have an MMIR fundraiser going on right now. There's little to no support for Indigenous peoples in the Sioux City area or in Iowa or like in Nebraska, which is where we work a lot with the, you know, Omaha and Winnebago and Santee tribes. There's little to no support for them when they lose somebody due to, you know, the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. It's, you know, just in the past, you know, handful of years, there's been many lost, you know, to insane violence. Zachary Bear Hills is one example, and many others that are gone. And so, you know, we have the highest rates of all the things, right? You know, and yet it's a very unseen and unheard of issue. And so it's really disappointing that our little organization needs to raise as much money as we can to support these families when, you know, tribal nations and governments and, you know, larger organizations that have a lot of funding, you know, should be actually doing this. It's disturbing, actually. And so we're working on that. Big Ag and CAFOs, that's always a huge issue for us. Which of course affects, you know, Des Moines, as you guys probably know about the Des Moines Waterworks lawsuit. And right now, you know, we're advising on a pesticide action network, anti-racism in agriculture advocacy program. If you want to see more about some more of our work that we've done in the past, there's a video on the Pesticide Action Network's website called Seed Keepers and Truth Tellers. That was a 2-year project that we advised on. And that's very relevant to Iowa. Iowa is the most biologically colonized state in the country. It's like the most, it's big eggs, bitch. And so we have these, like, you know, programs and ideas that we've been dreaming and working on for some time. Urban gardens, you know, legislation, factory farm moratoriums, like lifting the egg gag. We work with a couple of great organizations in Iowa. We support them and we go and lobby with them at times. And of course, you know, raising the minimum wage and making sure that these terrible industries stop taking advantage of migrant workers, Indigenous folks, and anybody really that, you know, they just want to make a quick buck off of. We have some great youth. We have 2 amazing youth that work with us, Keely Driscoll and Alexandria Flanders. Alexandria is representing us on this amazing project called Invisible Hand that is about the rights of nature, and it's being produced by Mark Ruffalo and Joshua Prabanik is the director, and that's going to be coming out on March 13th. So there's going to be like a worldwide global, or like a global youth viewing of it. And that's all on our website as well. Rights of nature, a very important concept that we need to adopt here in Iowa. As this Iowa is an end stage environment. We are very close to like complete environmental catastrophe here. So these are very important points that we have to keep focusing on here. We are continuing with our GeoTV efforts for 2022, working to, you know, support felons so they can vote, because who knows how that's going to go with someone like Kim Reynolds and this Republican government in office. We're going to continue to register as many BIPOC folks in Iowa as we can, which is really hard. An Indigenous-led voting effort is unique in the state, and so we hope that something like this, you know, continues to get notice, and that we can continue to, do that work. We don't believe in border imperialism, of course, and so our work, extends past, what is considered the borders of Iowa. And so, we're working on a video right now about the ethanol plant in Nebraska that just over the border of Missouri that's created a huge natural disaster. KXL is still being constructed regardless of what Biden's executive order said. Line 3 is still in construction, and these are all of our relatives, like people within our collective. They are from these spaces, and so of course we have to support, what's going on in their spaces. Like I said again, and border imperialism doesn't mean anything to us. The Dakota Access Pipeline, it's being supported again and revived in terms of the fight, just because, if Biden can cancel KXL, then why can't he cancel the Dakota Access Pipeline? And so that's something we've never given up on. We founded a camp called Little Creek Camp in Williamsburg in 2017, and we're willing to do it again to resist this pipeline if we have to, and also possibly the twinning of this pipeline, which has been considered. And one of the funny little things we're doing is, what's not funny, actually, it's great. One of our collective members is creating an Indigenous-led logic course for those interested in pursuing a law degree, which is really important, as you know, because law is an important part of fighting colonial capitalism. And I think I'm about to drop a zine here, like tonight, I hope. I was hoping to get that done earlier today. And it's a rather long read, but it's about CAFOs and big ag in Iowa, and what we can do to change that. It's kind of depressing, actually, unfortunately, but important to understanding like what is happening within our state and how toxic and poisonous it really is. And yeah, that was as much as I can think of.
I have a question. So I think I already know, and I know you already kind of went over some other things, but how can people uplift Indigenous efforts? How can we, like you mentioned, like how you fund people who are being lost right now? How can we donate, or how can we give you our time? Yeah, and Luke dropped in the chat, where can we find the zine when you drop it?
Oh, is it called a zine? I've always called it a zine. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian. It's going to be on our website. It'll be in our blog. Plus, there'll be a printable version of it. Yeah, I'm hoping to get that up tonight or tomorrow. And everything else I said, like you can find it on truthgiving.org, greatplainsaction.org, pesticideactionnetwork.org. Yeah, if you want to support us, we do have a donation link on there. We have fundraisers going on for a First Foods program we are supporting, and our COVID mutual aid work. And, I don't know if you guys know this. I think this is an important fact to know about Sioux City. It's only about 1% to 2% of the population. Only about 1% to 2% of the population is Indigenous, like Native American. But this demographic makes up 43 to 63% of the houseless community in Sioux City. And we have the majority of public intox arrests that happen each year are of Native American people. And so before Frank Lemire died, who is a huge mentor to all of us, it was he was doing amazing work to bring Indian health services into the state, like into Sioux City in particular. But I would like to see it elsewhere. And it provided it would provide detox spaces, transition housing, all of that. And just that doesn't exist in Sioux City. And Sioux City is a very and that whole area, that whole corridor up and along, that whole area from South Dakota all the way down to Omaha, it's like it's not an easy place, and it's where a lot of our people go missing. So yeah, if you wanted if you're interested in supporting our work, you can on our website, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking and letting us know everything that's going on, what's coming up, and how we can support. I see the Indigenous efforts, and you guys have my utmost respect. We have to remember being anti-racist includes all races, and to remember where our history comes from in this nation. We have one final speaker for tonight, Jalisha Johnson, a real life walking beautiful Bratz doll, a woman of word, a woman of action, an activist within our city, bringing artistic voice to the trials of the BIPOC community. Jalisha Johnson.
Hi friends, sorry, I'm in the car. I literally just got off of work. But so today I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the importance of arts organizations. And so I think like one common bit of knowledge that we all have experienced is that like arts orgs often do not get a lot of funding, and we often have to like come out of our own pockets and fundraise, et cetera, to be able to do the work that we do. And also a lot of us artists know that being able to curate our craft is very, very expensive. And so one thing, so I work for Run DSM, which is a local urban arts org. So the mediums that we work with is spoken word poetry, breakdancing, graffiti, and street art. And so obviously with those things, we need materials, we need to rent out spaces, we need to rent out stages, et cetera, et cetera. And we try to provide, well, we don't try, we do. All of our services are free. And so one thing that's really important to us also is like making sure that we use feed-in systems, which means bringing up artists and paying them. So all of those things come out of pocket, and we have to like find ways to, oh yeah, and we do a music production program that recently was piloted in the last few years. So like studio time, all that jazz is a lot of fucking money, and it's really expensive essentially, excuse my French. But one thing that I think about a lot when I rethink what type of world I want to live in is I think about how much my life would have been different if I would have had access to an arts organization when I was much younger. I remember the way when I was in 4th and 5th grade, I would sit in my room and I would write plays and little musicals and all my little sparing errors, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I needed a place in a space to like have an outpouring and a purge of the things that had been happening to me and the things that I had been living through and the things that I had been feeling. And so I think that like it always blows my mind the fact that we pay so much money every year to fund people who actively work to harm BIPOC folks when art is there and it's here and it actively works to heal BIPOC folks. And I think that one thing that a lot of folks don't acknowledge about art is the way that it can literally transform a person and can transform a space. And I know for me specifically, art saved and changed my life utterly and absolutely and irrevocably. I would not be the person that you guys know, and I don't even know if I would exist today. And even if I did exist, it for sure would not be in the same way that I do if it wasn't for a little small classroom at East High School where I was able to get on a makeshift stage that are like, I think Mr. Rice helped create. And so I think about like, if that's what a classroom with 2 people who cared about me can do, what would be able to happen for the young people of the city if we were able to keep pouring more funding and keep expanding the ways that we pour our dollars into art. And I know that one thing that I want to talk about that's really, really special to the Run DSM experience is something called Brave New Voices. And so Brave New Voices is the largest youth international poetry slam in the actual literal world. It's where young people, usually about 60 to 40 teams from all over, come together and we workshop together, and they bring in famous spoken word poets, and we compete against one another. And we come and Run DSM, we bring a team every year, and something that's super unique is Run DSM pays for everything: your plane ticket, your food while you're out of the state. Cause like to go to the festival itself, it costs a pretty penny. They pay for your festival fees. And the first time I ever traveled on a plane was because of Brave New Voices. And every time I've been on a plane since, and that was in 2016, every time I've been on a plane since is because of my art and my poems. And I think that one thing that Randy Sim has taught me that's really beautiful is that my poem can be a portal to a place that I would have never imagined myself existing before. So I think that like our art can give us access to worlds that are bigger than ourselves and that can make us bigger and better people. And I think that we need money to do those things. And of course, like everyone can be an artist if they have a pen and paper or a stage and a space, but like the ability to go and meet other people who are concentrated on the same craft as you, the ability to learn and grow with poets from all around the world or poets from all around the country, like those are really unique and really special and like character building moments. And like it's obviously not about the money that it takes, but I think we obviously understand like living in a capitalistic world, it takes money to get places. And I just think a lot about how many more kids we would be able to bring to BNV if we were able to have more funding. Usually we take about 6 poets every year along with 2 coaches and 2 chaperones. But I think about like how beautiful would it be to bring 15 and 50 young people of Des Moines to go into a space and compete with poets from New Zealand and South Africa and Great Britain. Like, I think that it's a really beautiful experience, and just like how much art can change our worlds and how much artists change the world, I think is really important. And like, I believe so deeply in my heart that like art is what influences people to change. Like one of my favorite quotes is, the job of the Black artist is to make revolution irresistible. And I think that art is one of the most accessible ways that we can give people access to information. Like no one wants to hear people talk at you or lecture you or read these 1,000-word fucking encyclopedias about what it means to be a good ally. Sometimes all people need is to go to a slam and hear a 15-year-old Indigenous girl talk about the ways that she feels invisible. And that's what moves us to make a change. That's what moves us to spend our money. That's what moves us to donate our time. That's what moves us to follow those pages, et cetera, et cetera. Like I think about the way that art changes the way I see the world. And when you change the way you see the world, it shifts the way you navigate it. And so I just think that like the most vital thing that we can do is keep listening to the artists, keep pouring our money and our time and our energy into our artists, and like they will lead us to the light and they will lead us to a better and a brighter future. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to come on here and say tonight. Thank y'all so much for making space. Thank you to all the folks who spoke before. I caught Lyric, Indy, Indira, Great Plains Action Society, et cetera, et cetera. Like I think that all of you guys, all the things that you do is art, even if you're not making poems or making songs. I think that when you speak with passion in your eyes and when you come into a space and you tell us about how we can be better for you and for your people, that is essentially what art is. It's advocating for other people. It's advocating for ourselves. It's stepping into our power. And I hope that we can all continue to create together and create a safer and a better city. So yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jalisha. You are so sweet and so kind. I love that art isn't just art. It's having a bright look in your eyes and speaking up for your people and your community. I really love that because I'm not very much of an artist, so that makes me feel better. Jake asks, where can we donate to run DSM? If you like have a link you can drop in the chat or something. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. And so thank you. I really appreciate all the speakers that spoke tonight. It's really beautiful to bring people who are working towards a brighter future, who are community leaders, community members, and neighbors. And it's really amazing to have such a safe space and to have this space where we can grow ideas and actions to make our communities better. I want to shout out to the Des Moines People's Town Hall for inviting me into their space to organize this, inviting me to be a host, and to make sure to give them a follow to keep up with their social medias. Do a lot around organizing around city council, making it easy for people to understand what's going on with city council. Because when I first got involved with city council, I was like, what is this? What's going on here? And then they started like having these threads, and I was like just reading them, and I'm like, I understood. And then I felt comfortable enough, and I spoke up on the city council meeting for the first time, and I was like shaking, and I haven't stopped, and I keep doing it because people need to speak up. The deadline to sign up for the next city council meeting is tomorrow at 5 p.m. They're going to start publicly discussing their budget, where they're going to give the police millions more in funding. They're going to cut the house list. Tonight we heard multiple examples and ideas of what we can envision if we put funding into our communities and not terrorizing them. So if you stay on, we're going to do breakout rooms to kind of see like, where would you like to see city funding go towards? Would it be, we've heard lots of examples, and then we're going to have an open forum for people to talk in a safe space about whatever they would like. But we're going to cut the live stream to